Watch this.
In a span of just days, the CEO of a large local construction company has gone from calling himself a victim to understanding the impact of his actions on actual victims. And now he's out of a job. You ever wonder if our elected leaders actually listen to those that voted them in? Well, it may seem rare these days in Idaho, but in the case of a new school funding formula, speaking up has made a difference.
It's my passion, my work, my dream.
A man who escaped Russia with just his family is finding fun following in his family's footsteps by melding metal into much more. Now, the state of the company is maybe better than it was a couple of days ago. For sure, it was on shaky ground for a few days, but now the CEO of Engineered Structures Incorporated is out of a job. Thomas Hill submitted his resignation just after 2 this afternoon, 4 days after twice throwing a Nazi salute at a company get-together. And in case you haven't seen the video, last Thursday, ESI held its annual State of the Company meeting at the Boise Center. A few minutes or so into that meeting, CEO Hill did this. Yeah, it was just 8 seconds out of an hours-long meeting. And very quickly, things went downhill for Hill when videos of that 2-time Nazi salute made the rounds on social media. And of course, there was the shock that goes with such a thing. But there were also those who asked the question of, like, what's the big deal? Make no mistake, though, it is a big deal, which is why this afternoon, Hill resigned, saying, while my behavior was never intended to promote hatred or extremist views, I recognize it has rightfully generated intense backlash and has overshadowed the mission of our company. Hill said he takes full responsibility and he realizes the impact his actions had on community and our stakeholders. And as a leader, he must exemplify the highest standards of conduct and integrity. So ESI is moving forward with President Neil Nelson taking over as CEO and chairman of the board. And here's how ESI got to this point. So shortly after that opening prayer at that meeting on Thursday, ESI President Neil Nelson, as I just mentioned, said he and CEO Tom Hill were told to not do anything political during this event. They were told by advisors it was, quote, high risk with no reward. But Hill said he was going to do it anyway. And he proceeded to play that 15 to 20-second slideshow of President Trump praising the results of the presidential election. And that's when the Nazi salutes came out. We were told a handful of people then walked out of that meeting. There was a statement sent out on Friday excusing the salute as parody, as part of a political skit. Unfortunately, my recent attempt at humor and parody fell short and is being used by others to unfairly judge me, Hill wrote. A commentary on the craziness of our political environment and nothing more, Hill said, while rejecting any association with hate groups. Hill also regretted his actions could be taken so out of context. And some might say a Nazi salute only adds to that craziness, and claiming it was taken out of context is an odd way to apologize. Then an internal memo became public over the weekend in which Hill wrote, I'm a Christian, I'm a Republican, a patriot, and a successful businessman, also a son, brother, husband, and father. I've learned today that some people will hate me for the first 3 or 4 things on that list. Doesn't exactly sound like contrition, does it? So those are 2 attempts, not quite the ownership and apology many might have expected, including ESI employees. So that was allowed to stew for a couple of days. And then Sunday, a 3rd statement was released by ESI's CEO. First line, deepest apologies for my actions at a recent employee gathering. I now fully recognize the gesture is not only inappropriate, but also profoundly hurtful. In this one, Hill admits it was a Nazi salute, the most recognizable of all Nazi symbols, and it represents hate, oppression, and unspeakable atrocities. No context or excuse can change that, and I take full responsibility for the offense caused. Hill went on to say his previous attempt to explain his actions also fell short. He realized it was defensive and it missed the mark. So there was some contrition there. But this part was also interesting. After significant feedback from those who were in the room or those who have seen the video, Hill wrote, I understand how inappropriate that Nazi salute was. He's sorry for compromising the trust from employees and the community. And about that, many wondered about the impacts of this company because ESI employs more than 1,000 people. And like a stainless steel refrigerator, you can see their fingerprints all over this state, including at Boise State University's brand new ESI Construction Management Building, on which they broke ground just 1 month ago. The latest in construction technology, we're told, featuring a 40-seat computer lab, classrooms, and a 3,300 square foot high bay with an overhead crane. Okay, so what about that building? Well, Boise State is still going ahead with it, saying we unequivocally condemn and will not tolerate any form of anti-Semitism, racism, harassment, or discrimination. We've spoken with senior leadership at ESI about this matter. We expect ESI to hold true to the commitments they have made in this statement addressing this concerning incident. Holding true, meaning I guess they likely knew this resignation was coming. Okay, so for anyone out there who thinks it would be good comedy to just throw out a Nazi salute, word to the wise, it's not, never will be, and we can never take such situations too seriously. That's according to the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights.
Partly because when we do that, we dilute really the impact of what that hand gesture means, not only in a historical era, but today. It is actively in use today by groups that are furthering ideas of hate and anti-Semitism, which is certainly on the rise. It's racist in its intent, it's anti-Semitic in its intent, and it's really connected very clearly to that era in history. And when we don't take it seriously or call it out, it's, I think it dilutes that meaning and it allows it to continue.
Yeah, it normalizes it. So that's what we don't want to do. We did reach out to CSI to see if, or ESI, excuse me, to see if their CEO would speak to us, Thomas Hill, but he was obviously working on other things and declined to participate in an interview. But it's worth noting, there was a part of that Sunday statement, and even in the email that went out today, where Hill wrote, ESI will revisit this respectful workplace training to make sure employees fully understand the impact of such actions, the importance of maintaining an environment of respect. In other words, they're going to be having training on diversity, equity, and inclusion now. All right, we talk about this a lot when it comes to the legislature, and this is a phrase we seem to use often. Despite overwhelming opposition, this bill passed whatever committee, which leads us to a lot of questions from the likes of you. Do our elected leaders even listen to those who elected them? Well, we'll see how that applies to the school choice tax credit bill. That's happening possibly this week. We could see the governor sign it. But today, Joe Paris found out some of those elected leaders and lawmakers do listen, at least when it comes to a school funding bill and one small Idaho school district.
Public school funding in Idaho seems to always be a marquee conversation at the State House. And there's a pitch from at least two angles to go from conversation to action.
Idaho has one of the only remaining funding formulas in the country that's called the resource allocation model, where the state bosses the local school districts around about how they're supposed to use their money.
Representative Wendy Horman is the sponsor of House Bill 279, a proposal to send discretionary funds to schools on a per-student amount. And discretionary money is for things that the state doesn't pay for.
Right now, 70% of the money you receive under the existing formula is from who you taught and who you hired last year. We want to change that up and send you money based on what you're teaching this year.
Representative Horman also wants to move towards sending that money based on weighted categories, things like special needs students, rural or small schools, and other factors. And that step would come next year, which is a major difference between Horman's idea in the House and a pitch in the Idaho Senate looking to accomplish a similar concept. But with both new ideas comes new questions.
We feel like we're getting lost in the mix a little bit.
Jeff Gee is superintendent of the Ryrie School District, located near the growing areas of Rigby, Madison, and Idaho Falls.
I didn't speak up last year when the facilities funding bill came through, and I kicked myself for that because that facilities bill really hurt us.
He wants to avoid a repeat with the pitches on the table to move discretionary funds to a weighted format, one that gives benefits to small and rural schools. His problem?
We're not big enough, but we're not small enough. And so we get lost there in the center.
The discretionary funding pitch in the Senate designates 600 students or less as a small school. Ryrie has 644. Representative Horman heard Gee's concerns and adjusted her pitch.
He had great and valid points, and my bill accounts for those, and it sends $14.2 million to small and rural districts in the interim until we can get to a fully weighted formula.
She isn't the only one listening. Superintendent of Public Instruction Debbie Critchfield authored the Senate proposal to do per-pupil funding and weighted formulas at the same time. Superintendent Gee spoke with her just today.
They were willing to look at a couple of the concerns that I brought up and rerun some numbers and see if there's a way that they can make it so that maybe there aren't quite so many winners and losers with this weighted student funding formula.
School funding conversations are complicated. That's why Gee appreciates places like Ryrie being heard.
The idea, I think, is a good one. It's just how do we figure out a way to do it in a way that all schools benefit from it?
So yeah, there are competing ideas at the State House, and back on Friday, or Thursday of last week rather, we did a compare and contrast. I did want to add, I just got a statement, a message from the superintendent's office, basically saying that there's been input from a lot of different players, including the superintendent from Ryrie, and that they really value the feedback, and they look forward to continuing the conversations over the next few days and really throughout the rest of the legislative session. Brian, it's a difficult thing to thread the needle on, especially this concept of the money following the students. With so many different size schools in Idaho, you have the one schoolhouse that's got 7 to 8 kids. Of course, in the West Ada School District, you have hundreds of kids at one high school. One size fits all doesn't work, so it's hard to figure out how it all fits together.
Yeah, these are the kind of bills you wish were introduced earlier so they could have time to hash them out as we get further into the session, not try to rush it through toward the end here, although we're not there yet.
Could be May, who knows?
Could be May. All right, thanks, Joe. Cancer touches everyone, which is why it's easy to see strong bipartisan support for House Bill 134. This bill would require health insurance plans other than Medicaid and self-insured to provide coverage for supplemental breast cancer screenings like MRIs, contrast mammograms, and ultrasounds. This would apply only to patients who are at high risk for breast cancer and clinically require additional screening. Like that'd be Bill's sponsor, Brooke Green, who was diagnosed with breast cancer in July, just 2 weeks before an embryo transfer to grow her family. Well, now, instead of that, she's going through breast cancer treatment. She said through this process, she realized women in Idaho are at a heightened risk because they aren't getting the necessary treatment, mostly because they just can't afford it. So she's trying to change that, and the co-sponsors of the bill are also trying to change that. They're also wearing pink today in support.
This is a fiscally conservative bill. You cannot argue against the fact that catching cancer early results in a better cost to the payer than catching it at 2, 3, or 4. My mastectomy cost $137,000. My follow-up chemo, couple $100,000. My radiation, couple more $100,000. Had I had advanced screening early on, the MRIs, the contrast mammogram, maybe I wouldn't be in this situation.
I remember when my son was 11, one of his best friends lost his mom to breast cancer because it was detected too late. And that boy looked so lost. And I hope that with this bill, we will see fewer such funerals and fewer empty seats at the tables.
After a few more emotional people participating in the debate, the bill passed with just 6 voting against it. And you can see the emotion on Representative Green's face, too, watching that bill pass and advance, and now heads to the Senate for a committee hearing. Transportation committees are usually about as exciting as that sounds, but today the House Transportation took up House Bill 235, which is the one which would create a new Idaho license plate available for purchase with revenues going toward the Idaho Transportation Department. You might remember the Gadsden flag plate, that was approved last year. Well, this year, they're hoping for the Appeal to Heaven flag license plate. What's that, you might ask? Well, let's let the bill's sponsor, Representative Josh Tanner, explain.
It's important because this was one of our first flags. This was actually George Washington's flag that he commissioned in 1775.
And he's right. It did fly over 6 military ships during the American Revolution. It became the maritime flag of the state of Massachusetts. And it was alluding to a quote from John Locke, that appeal to heaven, which basically says, when you've exhausted all other means, you appeal to a greater power. At that point, Representative Stephanie Mickelson, she had a question.
Can you tell us what it looks like?
Yeah, that's what I want. I don't have a picture of you. Got it. Representative Tanner, do you have a picture with you?
Mr. Chairman, no, I do not have it, but I can explain it to you.
Well, Representative Tanner doesn't have to explain it to you. Allow me to show it to you. There it is at the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th in 2021. See it way back there in the back? And there it is again amongst the crowd storming the Capitol later that day. You see it has that pine tree on a white background and then the letters Appeal to Heaven written across the top. Oh, look, there it is again with the Washington Monument there in the background. Again, on January 6th, 2021, amidst the crowd storming the Capitol. The flag actually flew outside San Francisco City Hall for like 60 years up until last year, until it became linked to far-right insurrectionists. That bill now heads to the full House to decide if it will be an option on Idaho cars and trucks. Three years after the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, and 3 moves later, a Russian artist who found his way to Boise is using his touch to move more than just metal.
Holy cow.
All right, this is the time of the show where we want you to make use of your hands and type us some questions, maybe some comments. If you have a concern, send it our way. Text us, 208-321-5614. As always, please include your name and the hashtag #the208. That way we can share yours at the end of today's show. Well, today marks 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On February 24th, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin sent troops into Ukraine amid Kyiv's bid to join NATO, which was a major threat to Russia. So Putin expected a quick victory, but he was met by steadfast Ukrainian resistance and a flow of Western weapons. The largest and deadliest European conflict since World War II. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians have been killed, and diplomatic efforts to end that war have stalled. And while there is a new push from the Trump administration, the path to peace does remain uncertain, and it's left many fleeing the country. Both countries seeking safety. As Hunter Funk found out, one family now living in Boise was able to escape from Russia, but they are taking joy in their new adventure and business in the Treasure Valley.
I love snow.
After escaping Russia during the war.
My name is Alex Bogot. It's my small name, special for American people's full name, Alexander Bogotyrev. It's very hard.
Alex, his wife, and 2 kids found relief.
I live in United States only 2 years. 1 year I live in Utah, 1 year in Alaska.
And now Boise is where they call home. He says he wanted to get his family away from the war and the ruling elite in Russia.
My dream live in the United States. It's good people, good heart, big heart. American people's very help me, my family.
Now they're taking on a new adventure. And starting a business can be tough in any community, especially one you've only lived in for 5 months. But Alex is quickly getting to work.
This project.
In that work?
Many piece, 100 piece metal.
He's catching the eye of those who drive past him.
Change angle and welding, grinding and polish. And second step, I need paint.
This bear, which he created, goes for rides around Boise.
You're an artist.
Yes.
How does it make you feel seeing the end product?
It's my passion.
And the passion ignited from his family.
My family, 3-generation blacksmiths, artist of metal.
Alex is currently making this, a giant skull.
A little this.
Molded with clay, then built with tiny pieces of metal.
Yes, I am using this metal, stainless steel.
And hammered to change the form, making it all come together as one piece. He expects to finish it this week. And after that,
my next sculptor is stainless steel.
He is making a Bronco in honor of Boise. Between the moose, Sasquatch, and bear, even this bear too, it takes about a month or 2 to create. Time that seems to fly by for Alex.
Make love work, no have work. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, if you love your work,
yes,
then you don't technically work,
yes,
right?
Correct. Yeah.
His metalwork goes beyond sculptures. He also creates gates, railing, small pieces like metal flowers and firewood holders. He's even building a camper.
It's my passion, my work, my dream.
If you think those are cool, he's planning to build tiny homes in McCall. And just wait till his latest idea becomes a reality.
Aliens home, open bottom, touch bottom, gate. Yes, it's light. It's very interesting project.
So like a UFO?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And Alex says bringing his family legacy of blacksmithing to the U.S. makes him proud. And while it's a new normal for his family, they say they're gracious for all of the love they've gotten so far. And his dream is to have all of this showcased someday at Jump.
Is there a plan for that Bronco to go somewhere?
He's still working to be determined.
Okay.
Maybe in the back of his pickup first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine that driving down the street.
Right?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Hunter.
Well, this morning's rain already a distant memory for most of us as sunshine and mild temperatures have become the talk of the town. Look at Caldwell and Nampa landing at or above 60 degrees this afternoon. Twin Falls at 58, 2 degrees shy of tying a record high for today. Boise hit a very comfortable 57 this afternoon. Already we are seeing temperatures start to drop in some places. Twin down to 54. We're in the upper 50s still for Caldwell, Nampa, and Boise. Look at Ontario, though, down to 39 already this afternoon. There's still some snow on the ground in portions of eastern Oregon, and we are starting to see the winds shift a bit as well. So westerly winds already in Ontario as there is a cold front that is on the move, very well defined by this preceding edge of precipitation you can see moving across Washington and Oregon. We will keep clear skies and dry conditions in play for your evening. It'll be breezy out there, but pretty comfy. Overall, we'll drop down to about mid-30s tomorrow morning. The front is slated to come through around 2 to 4 a.m. So a quick quick shot of valley rain, mountain snow, and much cooler temperatures tomorrow. Dry during the day in the Boise area tomorrow, but a high of just 50 with some brisk northwesterly winds. After that, though, temperatures rebound in a very pleasant way. We will be in those mid to upper 50s again by the end of the work week, kicking off March on Saturday with highs back up near 60 degrees.
All right, lots of comments today about ESI CEO offering his resignation, like this one from Ed in Meridian, who still doesn't believe that this was a Nazi salute. No, this one's a different one. Hold on, let me get to that one. My father flew bombers in World War II. He had a number of flaws, but he would have never tolerated someone giving a Nazi salute and then calling themselves a patriot. In my opinion, ESI's former CEO is neither a leader nor a patriot. That one from Ed. But this one from somebody in Twin Falls, that wasn't a Nazi salute. Did you see the double thump on his heart before the salute? Straight to the side, not forward, get a grip. That salute is one of the most recognizable of all Nazi symbols. That's from the CEO himself. You think anybody would tell him to say that? He would admit to something he didn't do? Brian, enough of making a mountain out of nothing. Elon Musk did not make a Nazi salute, and the ESI official did something foolish. And the loony left has blown this out of proportion. I'm Jewish and have lived with anti-Semitism my whole life. Cliff, that's the point. You shouldn't have to. We'll see you tomorrow.